General Manager Chris Getz is making moves, nothing major, but what other deals and signings should he be making this offseason? Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the FanSided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, the biggest move of the offseason for the Chicago White Sox was made last week when Garrett Crochet was dealt. Well, let's discuss in the first segment what's left for GM Chris Getz to do this offseason. Then let's discuss Bryse Wilson being signed to compete for a rotation spot. And finally, let's go over the Sox two other small deals made yesterday when they traded Chucky Robinson and signed Andre Lipsius. And the Chicago football playoff is here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The college football playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Okay, so Chris Getz was not kidding around when he said the heavy lifting of improving this putrid 2024 roster would not be done through free agency. Clearly wasn't kidding. And you could argue not much has actually been done. And the team might actually get worse now that Garrett Crochet has been traded. And if Luis Robert Jr. is traded, oh boy, this team might mimic something out of the roster constructed in Major League. You know, who are these guys? This guy's dead. Cross them off then. God, I could quote that movie for days. But maybe the hope is you get a bunch of surprising young players, just like Major League. You know, get some guys that, you know, there could be some potential all-stars here. And I mean, the Sox social media keeps touting the club having 6 players in the top 100, even if 3 of them were drafted in the club. But that's kind of where we're at right now. We have to look at the minor leagues for any hope whatsoever because there hasn't been much done to improve a roster that lost 121 games. At least not, you know, anything flashy. I would say Getz has at least prudently addressed some of the Sox issues. I do think that in prudent, rational, makes sense ways. And I prefer this year's vision of constructing the lineup compared to last year's, obviously. And that vision is get guys who get on base. Pure and simple. Back to Moneyball basics. Now, yes, I fully agree that Moneyball has evolved to, you know, value probably 4 numbers over on-base percentage more. And that's WAR, OPS, WRC plus, and then barreling up the ball while lifting it. You know, making hard contact in the sweet spot. You know, those are the things that a lot of teams are looking at. And, you know, we've created the value number now to really understand who is actually creating run opportunities. But still, it can never go back to just the basics of just get on base. Get guys who get on base. Very simple. You know, get as many runners as you can to give you as many opportunities to score runs. Seems simple to me after you've just lost 121 games. And it's better than, hey, let's go get run prevention guys who hit 220 and 230. Because if they don't prevent runs, you're going to get guys like Paul DeJong. Because that's what Paul DeJong did. He didn't prevent any runs. He was supposed to be here for the glove, and he didn't. And then the only real value you got from him was he hit enough home runs to get the heck up out of here. And you got a prospect pitcher who projects to be nothing more than a relief pitcher. So I can't fault saying, let's just get guys on base. Let's get back to basics. Let's get back to controlling the strike zone, putting the count in our favor. You know, and then let's start to evolve. Let's draft the guys that you can evolve into the OPS guys, the guys that can have the high WRC plus, the high value wars. You know, get those guys that barrel up the bats. You know, develop a system where that can actually happen. And I know everybody's skeptical. And the skepticism is earned. But if you want better days ahead, these are the things that have to happen. So just go back to basics. I got nothing wrong with that. And nothing shows the vision more when Getz may have found a second baseman capable of replacing Ray Durham. And remember, Ray Durham's been gone since 2002. And he found that guy in the Crochet deal with Chase Mydroth. You know, the minor league walk king, in my opinion, obviously has to prove he can draw walks. But if he does hit the projected 242, according to FanGraphs, now that could change because the Zips projections are not out. This is their steamer. And I think the assumption would be he would just be getting a small call up with the Red Sox because they projected him getting a call up in 2025 with 42 games. But even a 242 average with a 356 OBP for the year, especially in his rookie year, would be productive. It would actually have a little bit more value than the 312 on-base percentage of Nicky Lopez. Nicky Lopez hit 240. But you didn't get as much value because Nicky was only on base below average. Yes, I still think an on-base over 300 is something that you should always be desired, but remember, solid is considered 340. So if you get Chase Mydroth even at above solid numbers, that at least is going to help. And he also brought in, Getz brought in Mike Tauchman and Austin Slater to platoon in right field. Obviously still just another Band-Aid to replace Jermaine Dye, who's been gone since 2009. But at least you're getting guys that have career on-base percentages over the solid mark of 340. So at least there's a vision for the batting order here. You just have to wonder who the heck is going to drive them home. And automatic offense in the home runs department is still a question mark. I mean, yes, if you get a reignited Luis Robert Jr., then you got your answer. Guy hit 38 home runs in 2023. And if Andrew Benintendi can continue to drive the ball like he did in the second half, you at least got a shot for another 2025 dinger season. And hopefully Andrew Vaughn can focus on pulling the ball and add some home runs. That's big hopeful with Vaughn, and I'm just running out of energy in being hopeful with Andrew Vaughn. I'm just out of energy. Just like the organization. The organization's out of energy, and my energy for thinking that, hey, this might be the year that Andrew Vaughn's going to be unlocked is completely gone. But you could get a boost, too, in the automatic offense if Colson Montgomery debuts this season. He has a 60 grade power, and despite the poor average at AAA, he did still hit 18 home runs. Prospects Brian Ramos, Edgar Caro, and Kyle Teal, they at least have 50 grade power to add to the lineup if they make the lineup out of spring training. So, when it comes to the automatic offense, maybe you do have to wonder, should Getz go find maybe a little bit more power in free agency, even if it's just a midseason rental? But the balance has to be, the focus should be giving a runway to Montgomery, Ramos, Caro, and Teal, especially if they prove in spring training or early season in the minors that they're ready for the bigs, because this is the prime years to start, especially if you want to be competitive by 2027. Those four guys that I just mentioned have to be part of the foundation. They have to be productive hitters. And 2 of the 4, maybe 3 of the 4, heck, if you can get 4 of the 4 to be actually impactful, that's going to help in the long run. So you kind of have to balance that out. But if Montgomery still needs another month or 2 at AAA, the other thing that you got to ask is, do you go get a veteran shortstop as a bridge? For example, Jose Iglesias, he had a 3.1 B-WAR season for the Mets. And why am I throwing him out there? Well, he had a 3.81 on-base percentage for the Mets. Now, granted, it was in 270 at-bats, but he is projected to make $1.7 million according to Spot Track. And there's a possibility you might have a contender that would trade for him at the trade deadline, knowing that, hey, he provides a solid glove. However, his glove is now more solid at third base, where he had 4 defensive runs saved in 2024, where the DRS and the outs above average numbers, they've declined over the years at short. I'm throwing him out there as an example because he was one of the guys I was looking at and be like, well, he at least had recent on-base percentage production that might make sense for the Sox if you're thinking about a bridge shortstop. Because right now, if Montgomery needs more time at AAA, you're looking at Brooks Baldwin, Lenyn Sosa, and maybe Jacob Amaya rotation at shortstop. And the last time Sosa played short in the bigs was 2022. Now, they might not have to even do anything because they did sign Nick Maton to a minor league deal, and he has 443 career at-bats, but he hasn't played short since 2023. So you gotta, I would say, do you need to add some power? And could you add some power at shortstop? Let's not have a reunion with Paul DeYoung, though. You don't want to have that defensive gaffe there. But, I would say that those are 2 more things that you might want to take a look at. I would say the other move Getz needs to make is add another veteran starting pitching option beyond Bryse Wilson. And I'll talk about him in the next segment. I would feel more comfortable with Jose Quintana, getting a reunion with him, or Michael Lorenzen, or even Colin Rea eating some innings. And in this case, I would trade some runway experience for at least having a solid veteran arm to help these younger pitchers kind of know the way of the big leagues, and then flip them at the deadline. I mean, when you're talking about Quintana, Lorenzen, even Colin Rea, if he produces again, you might have a better chance of getting something more valuable or something more significant than what you might get in Wilson. And I wouldn't even mind Jacob Junis getting signed, and then maybe you have him compete with Wilson to see who gets the starter spot, and then whoever loses, they go to the pen. And again, it can never hurt to get a couple more veteran reliever arms on a 1-year deal, or 1-year deal on an option to flip at the trade deadline, since the 2024 deadline was so good to the relief market. Obviously, markets can change, but if the Dodgers can win a World Series bullpenning, I envision bullpen arms being valuable every deadline going forward, especially since they usually come cheaper for a stretch playoff run. And then if you want to still keep Jairo Uriarte stretched out, or Mason Adams stretched out, or Kai Busch, they can still get some innings at AAA, even though it's a bandbox at Charlotte. You don't have to, because you could give runway, obviously, to Uriarte in the bullpen, and that's his floor. His floor is projected to be a very, very good bullpen arm. But they may still want to try to see if he can be a starter. Well, if he doesn't prove that he could be a starter, doesn't win a spot out of spring training, do you want to put him at AAA instead to just keep him stretched out, just in case you get an injury, just in case you get an underperformance, that type of stuff. So that's why I would say I would make an exception to sacrifice some runway for some veteran bullpen arms that could be flipped at the deadline, especially since once they're flipped at the deadline, you still have a couple months to give, some of these guys some big league innings in the bullpen, so there, that's kind of my thinking there. Well, let's discuss what Bryse Wilson can add to the Sox starting rotation or bullpen group, and we'll discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and I always maintain FanDuel spreads, over, under, and money lines. They're fun to play, but if you want to win big, or at least double your money, FanDuel's parlays, props, and futures is the way to go. Right now, FanDuel has it at plus 350, the first scoring play of the Detroit and Chicago game this Sunday being a Detroit field goal. If that hits and you put $10 on it, $35 won. Chicago's at plus 410 for that same type of prop, and $10 on that, and it hitting $41. Chicago scoring first and it being a TD, that's at plus 320. And you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch a show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. So I like the Bryse Wilson signing, and it's not because he's a former Milwaukee Brewer. I like it because, first, it's a 1-year deal at $1.05 million with some incentives. And there's no such thing as a bad 1-year deal unless you're signing Mike Clevenger or Trevor Bauer. Bad dudes. And for the Bauer bros who pop up in the comments every now and again, and I see it, and I don't know if it's like a bot. I don't know. But for those Bauer bros, stop it. He isn't in the league because he's a bad guy. And it's not because of all the accusations. It's teammates hated him. He's a clubhouse cancer. The Dodgers team, his teammates with the Dodgers and the organization wanted him gone long before all the accusations came out. He's reportedly not a very good teammate. So just stop it. That's why he's out of the league. It's not this, everybody's woke. No. He's a to the point, he's such a problem in the clubhouse to the point where teams don't even want to bother with the guy. That's the issue. So to the Bauer Bros, get up out of these comments. Stop it. Okay? Anyways, the Sox get a catcher who will be 27 in a few days, and he still has the potential to be a back end starter, or he can still, he's proven that he's at the very least a reliable bullpen arm. And his numbers do point him to being a better reliever than starter. He has made 52 starts in his 7-year career with the Brewers, Braves, and Pirates. But he has a 5.37 ERA as a starter with a 1.48 WHIP in 239 career innings as a starter. As a reliever, the right-hander has a 3.57 ERA. His career best ERA of 2.58 came in 2023 when he pitched exclusively out of the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen, although he may have gotten some help from Milwaukee's defense and a little bit of luck on the side because his FIP was 4.13. He's always had a high FIP. Bryse pitched in 34 games in 2024 where he made 9 starts for the Brewers. He posted a 4.04 ERA with a 5.09 FIP. He had a 4.57 ERA as a starter. Per Baseball Savant, Wilson mostly will throw a cutter and a sinker. That's usually his bread and butter pitches, a cutter and a sinker. He will mix in a four-seamer that averages just a tick under 94 miles per hour. He can also throw a curve and a changeup. That's why he still has starter potential. Lefties have hit 264 with an 815 OPS off of him in 2024, while righties hit 242 with a 687 OPS. Did hurt his oblique in September, so did not pitch in the Brewers wildcard series with the Mets. So, he can definitely eat some innings if you need him in a pinch. But he definitely can help the Sox bullpen that blew 37 save chances. And remember, the pitching staff as a whole blew 56 leads. And again, when you're talking about setting a historically all-time awful record for 121 losses, that matters. Again, you say you blow only 34 saves, you're not even mentioned. You're kind of discussed with you're now in the 2003 Detroit Tigers. Just came close. Just looked at the edge and said, nope, ain't joining that. So that is why I prefer his production to come out of the pen. But at the same time, it can never hurt to kick the tires on Wilson as a starter, especially if he is going to be your 5th starter. I think he makes an ideal 5th starter because you can still start the season with him out of the bullpen, since the Sox are not going to need a 5th starter until mid-April. So you could still get even value at the beginning of the season with him, kind of in long relief. You can even ramp him up as a opener in a couple of those April starts with how the schedule shakes out. My hope is, and I kind of saw this might be the Chris Flexen option. And I'm just like, just because they both signed for $1 million. Come on, man. I mean, Chris Flexen at least had a resume of being a solid starter before kind of falling off. I mean, Wilson has never been known as this is a guy who's going to be a starter. He's been potential. I mean, a good thing working in his favor is he's going to be 27. So there's still something there to potentially try to unlock. And like I said, I trust pitching guru Brian Bannister. I trust him to help him construct his pitches a little bit better, and then hand him over to Ethan Katz to make sure that he's monitored, because that's basically how I view Ethan Katz. But at the same time, like I said in the first segment, I'd still prefer a starter with better production. And if the club wants to add a veteran to the rotation, I would prefer they maybe, like I said, get a Jose Quintana. But at the same time, this is a solid, prudent signing. Just like, that's what I think of this offseason so far. It hasn't been obviously flashy headlines. Some of these signings you could be looking at and being like, oh my gosh, this team could lose 121 games or more again. But at least there's a method behind the madness, in my opinion. And again, getting Wilson can never hurt, because again, if he does turn out to be a good starter on a 1-year, $1 million contract, think about that. I mean, if he even has a 4 ERA as a starter, and he's effective, that's a that should get you something solid back in return. So I like the addition of this. I would prefer, again, more competition for that veteran starter. I hope they only go with one veteran starter, though, because I still want to give runway to Sean Burke. I could see them being like, well, maybe it was just a flash in the pan. I mean, Sean Burke's got the potential to be a very, very good pitcher. And Andrew Thorpe and Davis Martin and Jonathan Cannon. So, well, the Sox made 2 more moves yesterday that didn't warrant an emergency podcast, but obviously they're worth talking about in the final segment of today's episode on Locked On White Sox. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. SelectQuote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. And if you're in good health, they work with carriers that can get you same-day coverage for up to $5 million, no medical exam required. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/lockedon. Go to SelectQuote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/lockedon. SelectQuote, they shop and you save. I really like that tagline. Anyways, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Again, we're building the community up. We've gotten over 2,100 YouTube subscribers. Let's keep building up our YouTube community. So recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever they get their podcasts, as the show is available on all major podcast platforms. And hey, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. That'd be greatly appreciated. Like I said, I think I'm doing better, and I'm here for you every day. Except for programming note, might not be here on Christmas Eve or Christmas. Obviously, got family obligations. I'll see if I can get an episode out. But programming note for next week, most likely we're going to have episodes on Monday, Thursday, and Friday. So just an update on that. But again, really do love talking White Sox baseball. I guess I'm one of the weird ones out there. So I'm here for those that are, still looking at this train wreck, that are still loyal like me with these emotional attachments. And I'm also here for those that have checked out, but still want to kind of check in, see what's going on, knowing when, hey, can we come back at some point? As of right now, no, it's still like the Blackhawks of the early 2000s. So, but hey, that's what I'm here for. And I'll always have a place in my heart for Chucky Robinson. I just have a soft spot for players who go old school and hit without batting gloves. I don't know why. I've just always liked the grit, old school look. It's just something that will always have a soft spot on, for me. Even though he was terrible at the plate. He had a -3 OPS plus, and he's not going to be on the south side anymore, as he was traded for cash to the Angels yesterday. Someone had to go with the addition of catcher Mike Theis and Wilson. And I talked about the Theis trade on yesterday's show and how he is an upgrade actually over Chucky as a bridge backup catcher until Kyle Teel and Edgar Caro are ready to take the starting spot from Corey Lee, so he can move into the ideal role for him, and that's backup catcher. Although, talking about a weird way to get Matt Theis, the Angels trade him to the Cubs, and they trade him for cash, because I think for a second the Cubs thought, well, he could be our backup catcher, and then they sign another backup catcher. So then they go ahead and trade him to the Sox for cash, and then the Sox send Chucky Robinson to the Angels for cash. You kind of want to be like, could they have do the Cubs really need to go and trade for Matt Theis? I mean, did they really need to do that? Because you could have just traded Theis for Chucky Robinson. But hey, it's a circle of life in the baseball world. And shout out to my guy Adam Stardube for pointing that out. Saw that on Twitter. The other minor move the Sox made is they signed infielder Andre Lipsius They signed him to a minor league deal with an invite to camp. Once again, these are the moves that the club actually should be making. Scour the scrap heap to see if a guy can still become something rather than wasting your time on Danny Mendick and Zach Remillard. Don't get me wrong. I love Danny Mendick. And it almost felt like there was something in the, the team charter that they had to have a guy like Danny Mendick on their roster. But he wasn't going to be anything more than organizational depth. So grab other guys in that instance and see if you can get lucky in getting some value in the reclamation. You weren't going to revive or get anything more out of Danny Mendick than just being an organizational depth. But try to see if some of these other guys that have now been given up on organizations that are still in their 20s, see if they can be revived or reclaimed. And it sure beats the heck out of trying to see if Rafael Ortega has anything left in the tank. Lipsius likely will not be anything special, but he does turn 27 in next May. Got to the show in 2023 with the Tigers, got into 13 games with a 286, 342, 400 slash line, had 10 hits with 1 home run. You can play first, second, and third, hits right-handed. He got traded to the Dodgers after the 2023 season, spent all of 2024 with their AAA affiliate, hit 25 home runs with a 271, 351, 458 slash line in 140 games. And again, are you starting to see a theme here? He gets on base. And if he hits in spring training, maybe he's got a shot to make the roster, as the team could use a backup behind not hitting Miguel Vargas at third and someone to give Andrew Vaughn and his tendency to get sore legs a day off at first base. But he's probably likely organizational depth where you can put him at AAA and have some coverage in case there's an injury. But there's nothing wrong with taking a peek and seeing, has somebody missed something in these other organizations? Is there something we can tweak? Is there something we can do to unlock you? And maybe you can get a productive player. Can't hurt. Like I said, last year, that was one of the biggest flaws in the roster construction was you spend all this time on these down roster invites on like Mike Moustakas and Rafael Ortega and trying to see if something was still left when you should have been looking for if something's still there in younger players. Although it wouldn't shock me to see Lipsius, Maton, Braden Shoemake, and Jacob Amaya be the opening day infield for the Knights, with Tim Elko being the DH if Montgomery breaks camp with the Sox. But hey, at least you got some depth. Nothing can't hurt to again, but keep focusing on finding is something there rather than is something left. That would be my key if you're going to keep making these minor league non-roster invite moves. Anyways, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back to discuss the most recent over-under being set on the Sox win total in 2025 and what the business should be of a sports business. Should be win at all costs or win on the margins and be economically, feasible, and making sure that you're getting players as cheap as possible, and trying to win on that end, so we'll discuss that. And plus I'll get it to a top 5 Friday. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding what Chris Getz has left to do this offseason, the Sox signing pitcher Bryse Wilson, and the 2 other minor moves they made. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub, or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.